Broads Media.
This is terrible. This is not good. We are unfortunately, once again, going to break this thing down. Real quickly, though, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and you hit that thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate all the support. I love you guys so much. And also, if you're looking to go to any NBA, NHL, NFL game, you can use promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page for $20 off. Imagine me flashing a $20 bill right in front of your face. You'd absolutely take it from me, right? As you should, because I'm giving it to you. Well, I'm doing the same thing right now, and you'll eliminate all those fees right from the jump. It's a no-brainer. Get yourself to a game. Treat yourself to a game. Promo code BROADS, SeatGeek's checkout. And then lastly, TikTok at Broads Media. We're starting to implement some cool things over there. We're going to continue to add as the weeks go on. Toss a follow at Broads Media. And with that being said, enjoy the show. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. So I did a little self-assessing yesterday, some self-reflecting after that loss to who was it before the Brooklyn Nets? I'm already drawing a blank and trying to erase it from my damn memory. It was against the Heat, right? Sloppy, at home, it was miserable. And afterwards, I am freaking out. My face is turning red, and I'm ripping apart people because they're throwing Embiid's the issue my way, and they're claiming that Tyrese Maxey is the closer and all this. And I think what that really made me do is look within and really study what was going on here. And I came to the conclusion that in so many different ways, we are all targeting our frustration to a specific level. So some will take it out on Embiid, some will take it out on Doc Rivers, other will take it out on Tobias Harris. And I really reflected and stated, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day which angle you're taking here, because all we are as a city, as a community, as a diehard 76er fan base, all we're doing is putting all of our emotions in one certain direction because we're so upset and devastated with the circumstances that we were dealt with this season, which in reality, whether you want to admit it or not, the answer is there's 9,000 issues with this team that all come together to make this the product consistently, which is losing to a team that's a disaster and don't even have their proper players due to COVID protocols. So what I mean by this is Joel Embiid at times not playing his best. Tobias Harris has been insanely underperforming. He went 3 of 17 from the field today, 5 personal fouls. He was atrocious. He was devastating. It is insanely crushing this team that this is the outcome you are getting when he touches the floor. And I think right now the pressure is getting to him because he knows there's a lot of drama tied to his name. He knows that he's not living up to the expectations. Not that we demand something unbelievable and electric and something that he's not, but what you provided last year was a nice little how do you do, and if you showed over a long period of time last year that was something you're capable of doing, you can't regress to this level. You need to find a way to get back to that version of Tobias, and I think that there's a ton of pressure knowing, one, the city is all on him. Like, I'm not downplaying getting COVID and athletes going through that, especially when we know the symptoms were heavy for Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, and they were truly feeling it. But after you lose to the piss-poor Miami Heat, who had no players available, the last thing I want to do is hear Tobias Harris say, we don't care about them as people, we don't care about them, or we don't think about what they're going through. Yes, we do. Oh, trust me, yes, we do. So what you're trying to do is, well, you're right, there is legitimacy to returning when you are feeling those type of symptoms and whatnot, and the long-term effects of how it might affect your respiratory and things of that nature. What you're doing is you're deflecting, or you're trying to bounce off the issues and put it into another area. You're trying to deflect it. You should say, this is not okay. This is unacceptable. This can't happen. This is demoralizing, and as a locker room, we need to pick it the hell up, because this is not the brand of Sixers basketball that we look at and say, yes, this is us. No, we are better than this. We will be better than this. You got to come out with the right message instead of, after a loss, people don't care about us. What? What type of message is that? That's telling me what that is. When I study that answer, it's telling me that there's something going on psychologically with the approach to Tobias Harris, and I think that it's getting to him, that he knows he's overpaid, the fan base is letting him know, and he's starting to become a target because he's not holding his end of the bargain. Nobody's expecting him to be LeBron. Nobody's expecting him to be Joel, but we're expecting what we saw last year, which is a good version of Tobias Harris. So going back to my main point here is, there's so many issues. Doc Rivers, not up to his standards. This team is consistently getting waxed with the zone. Now, I think a product of that is not having a ton of great players, and you could beat a zone in the NBA with shooters, but the problem is the way that this roster is constructed, you don't have a ton of those that you can rely on. And I put up a clip on the Broads Media Twitter account during this game, and it was Matisse Thybulle wide open in the corner. Good ball movement. The ball swung from top of the perimeter to more of the elbow, right over to Matisse Thybulle, bing, bang, bang, takes a three, and during the away broadcast, all you hear is this. The Nets will live with that one as Matisse Thybulle misses. Now, I thought that fourth quarter spurt out of your bench players and your role players was magnificent, and I didn't see it coming. And he did make a big shot there, and he made a shot after that miss. His next three-point attempt, he did cash in. But big picture-wise, this isn't a game-by-game thing or, hey, let's just study today's game and talk about it from that perspective. We know Matisse is a struggling three-point shooter, and every single year he's been here, his numbers have been going in the wrong direction, which is not something that satisfies me and something I will extremely point out when it comes to the flaws of him and the flaws of this three-point shooting team as well. Tobias Harris not holding up his end. Seth Curry does. I mean, that the third quarter, I'm looking for that word, or those two words. The third quarter, explosive out of Joel and Seth Curry. And you were looking for others to step up throughout the entire game. Even the first quarter, if you think about the first 15 points or so this team scored today, you look at Joel Embiid. He might have not have scored every bucket. He did get points, but what he was doing was, in the post, getting the ball, kicking out for three. In the post, kicking the ball out for three. In the post, kicking the ball out for three. Like, you use that message. Or he was out by the perimeter and beautiful pass to the corner on the opposite side of the court for a three. He was using his facilitation. At one point, he's running the damn floor like he's Ben Simmons, and he's kicking it out to Seth Curry. He's also Euro stepping from the three-point line. Within 2 steps, he's pretty much kissing it off the glass right at the rim. Like, Joel Embiid was strong today. He finished 11 of 20, 32, 9, and 6. He was doing a lot of different things today, for sure. And were there some buckets late that maybe he didn't cash in on? And we're going to have the whole closer thing again? It stems farther from there. Like, you can't keep up that three-point shooting because this team isn't very good at it. They don't have players that you can rely on. It doesn't help that you don't have Tyrese Maxey after yesterday's performance against Miami, but that's irrelevant when you're playing a team that just has Kevin Durant. I hate to say it that way with only Kevin Durant, but based off of Claxton and some of these other players out there, it should not have been this competitive. You can't keep falling back 20 points. You're basically falling behind by a number that is inexcusable, and no wonder why you continue to fail late to close out, because there's such a big gap that you're trying to come back from. No matter who you're playing against, it's going to be extremely difficult. And you run into a wall. And Kevin Durant's going to make obnoxious shots. And then Blake Griffin with a wide open three cashes in. Now, I was surprised by the start of the fourth quarter, and I was a bit devastated because I thought it was a recipe for disaster to throw out Shake Milton, Matisse Thybulle, Isaiah Joe. Who else was out there? Tobias and Drummond. And then Tobias ended up picking up a foul, so they threw Danny Green in there. But Drummond's picking cookies off and bringing it to the house with a wide open slam, a nice steal to a slam combo. And Matisse Thybulle and Drummond were playing nice defense out there by the perimeter in that spurt. But all around, this team defense is miserable, and they're getting shelled. They allowed, 39 points in the first quarter, 66 at the half. Getting back to the original point, though, which I opened up to show it, there's so many problems. Not having Ben is a problem. Not having that $30 million is a problem. At times, Joel is a problem. He's my farthest thing from an issue because I know he's still an NBA superstar by the end of this, but there's times where you want a bit more from him, and it looks like he's going through the motions. But I think he's getting frustrated with games like this where you need guys to help out and step up. And outside of Seth Curry, there really wasn't anyone. I mentioned the top of the fourth quarter, but really, there's not enough. There's not. You're having issues consistently. Well, Danny Green starts, he goes 2 of 7. Well, Matisse Thybulle starts, and he goes minus 23 in a handful of minutes last night. So here we are, flip-flopping nonstop. Who do we start? It's an ever-going rotation that we don't really have. You know what happens when that's the case? Your team's not good enough. If you can't consistently put out a product that you can rely on, and you have to change pieces left and right, literally every single game, it tells you that your team is not good enough. And the answer isn't, look, we're all frustrated, but I still believe the answer isn't to just get rid of Ben just to get rid of him for random pieces, because then we get upset with those random pieces the same way we do Tobias, the same way we do Danny, the same way we do with other players. So I think all this from yesterday and losing my damn mind and really getting furious and screaming at people, which I like to do, don't get me wrong. I find that entertaining in the sports radio department and the sports debate department. At the end of the day, I think I maybe went over the top just a tad yesterday, just trying to defend Joel, which means I was taking shots at Maxey, which I did not like to do, because I think it's very clear that we all love this kid, and we know that he's got a ton of potential, and he's got possibly a stud in the making type of description on him, so I truly love him. I think we all just naturally kind of use this frustration, whether we know it or not, or realize it or not, and we're just targeting all these pieces when in reality, it's a collective group. And the example I always use, which it might be tiresome to hear it, and it might be annoying to hear it, but it truly is the best way to describe where we're at. It's not this first one. I kind of have two here. This does seem a little like the year where they had Al Horford and Josh Richardson, where, you know, they won some games and whatnot, but you knew it was just off. And right now, they're clearly not a finished product with the drama surfacing this organization, but it does seem that way, at least for right now, that this team is kind of a bit of a mess in that department where, sure, they won some games, but you knew deep down that there was something off with this team, and right now they're a 500 basketball team. I go back to, would they be above 500 a bit more if they didn't have the COVID protocol situation where they went 2-9 or something along those lines without a lot of their players? Maybe they're 4 games over 500, 3 games over 500. Regardless, though, there's clear signs of issues, no matter if that's the case or not. But the example I want to tie it to is when the Eagles went down the Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz era, and it became a disaster, there were some fans that blamed it all on Carson Wentz. There were others that said it's all Doug Peterson. There were others that said Howie Roseman. There's others that said the offensive line and the injuries. And reality is, it was poor drafting by Howie. Carson Wentz really sucked. Doug Peterson's play design was brutal. He did not run the football, which made the team very one-dimensional and easy to stop. Their best wide receivers were Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside with the 4-game spur to Travis Fulgham. And their offensive line was an absolute shambles, where it was a new lineup every single game and the most combinations we've ever seen. It was ridiculous. So why did the Eagles fall apart and collapse? There were 7, 8, 9 different reasons. Why are the Sixers looking the way that they are right now? It's not because Joel Embiid's not a closer and he's selfish. It's not because Doc Rivers is the dumbest head coach in the world. It's not because Tobias Harris is the worst NBA player in history. Now, they have, like, Tobias Harris is clearly brutally overpaid right now. My point is, it's not just one reason. It's not just one. Well, if you fix this one. Now, what I'm going to say is, I feel with that statement, there will be people who supported Ben and said, well, he was the culprit last year, and he was the reason why everybody freaked out and put all the blame on him. That's extremely unfair. With all of that said, with what I just stated, there is legitimacy still to, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's legitimacy. I can't believe I have to explain this, I should say, to a primary point guard in 2021 being afraid to shoot a basketball. Majority of the issues with Ben in the postseason, or majority of the issues with the Sixers in the postseason, stem from that right there. So that's still in play, and that still is fair to put a lot of the blame on him based off of last year's debacle and falling short. And just to be clear, one of the issues I have right now with Matisse Thybulle, who is a young, promising kid that I really enjoy watching as well because he's special on the defensive end, and I'm keeping it 100. He's problematic. He doesn't work. So it's not just a Ben thing. It's the style of play. I keep it the same no matter who it is. If it's another player that's getting shelled and annihilated on the offensive side, but he defends well, I'm saying, hey, if you find ways to trade him and package him up with Ben and this and that, he's movable, I'm in the same boat no matter who it is. Ben, Matisse. The difference is Ben has superstar talent potential labeled to him. Matisse Thybulle, not so much. So it brings it into a different tier. Matisse Thybulle was never brought into this organization to turn it around and be a number 2 behind Joel Embiid. He was a late draft pick in the 20s, which is a totally different circumstance. But just to be clear here, one of the issues with this team, and a solid portion of it here, is you don't have a lot of shooters, and that's killing you. One guy specifically that we harp in on is the same style of player as Ben. So that same frustrations point out to him as well. So that's kind of where I am. I know I didn't, to this point kind of break down the Nets, if you will, but I think it was kind of like a self-assessment that I realized while watching this game and watching the Heat game and kind of re-listening to what I said yesterday. I thought, it came out a little fiery, a little harsh, and I realized that's just my frustration coming out. That's the way I'm handling it right now, is I'm kind of taking it out on the Joel Embiid haters, and that's kind of where my mind goes, because I don't think it's that fair. I think Joel has part of the blame. Doc has part of the blame. Tobias has part of the blame. Roster construction right now has part of the blame. Some of that prior to Daryl Morey. A lot of it on Ben Simmons as well for being very stubborn and unwilling to compete as an athlete and as a competitor. That falls on him too for being such a child and a baby and not willing to approach this like a professional and someone who's willing to really be a top tier athlete with the proper mindset. So that's also in play too. Hey, wait, what a great time to tell you about DeSimone Jewelers. DeSimone Jewelers. You know I love them, and you will love them as well when you go there for the holidays, because they're coming up, gentlemen, and you want to make sure you get your loved one or any family member such a beautiful piece of jewelry, and there's no better place to go than DeSimone Jewelers. I went to them for my fiance's engagement ring. It was the best decision of my life. They're a family-owned business located in Haddonfield, New Jersey, previously in Jewelers Row. Will, Lou, Nick, and Mike, they are grade A people. They are fantastic, and they will treat you like you are a DeSimone, like you are part of the family, not just a customer. They work with you to get the best design at the most reasonable price you will find in the market. They provide custom jewelry design, jewelry repairs, appraisals, watch repairs, and so much more. Make sure you tell them that Brode sent you. Their website, DeSimoneJewelers.com, is in the bio down below. If you tell them Brode sent you, they will absolutely hook you up. You are missing out. It's the holidays. Christmas is coming so soon. Next week. Make sure you don't wait too much longer. DeSimone Jewelers, make sure you give them a holler. Look, this team was outcompeted again tonight. You thought maybe they'd find a way there late. It did seem more realistic tonight, even though last night they tied it with that Tobias Harris 3, and you got a little bit excited. It did feel, because maybe that third quarter shift, it was right after the half, that happened earlier. That shift happened earlier. Now, in the Heat game, it was a 15-3 run or so to end the third quarter. Right from the jump, Joel Embiid started getting into rhythm, knocking down his shots. Him and Seth Curry working a good two-man game. Like, they were very active and going where it's, man, if they can keep this up, the Nets are really undermanned. They're understaffed. Yes, Kevin Durant is unbelievable, but maybe you can pull this out while targeting some of their other players. But they just kind of ran out of gas. There was some unfortunate situations played out with Shake Milton and some quiet, what's the phrase I'm looking for here? Quiet trips? No, empty trips. There were some empty trips down the floor there where there were some charges called, and that killed some mojo and killed some rhythm. Unfortunately, that's kind of how it all shaped up. So I know Doc Rivers was upset with the lack of foul calls at times. I know he was upset with Kevin Durant walking into threes. And I'll tell you what, KD really was barking out there. And maybe it's just because the fuel with Joel Embiid, not that there's an actual fuel, but just a competitor with the proper mindset, with the killer attitude, just looking at Embiid saying, screw you. Who do you think you are? You hear those MVP chants? Those are mine, baby. Right? That type of fire lit under him. because I thought it was strange. Where's this coming from? Now, we know that some of these athletes are wired differently, but with KD, he was yapping out there, and he was loud about it. He was nonstop. He was going to the half-court line, and he was jawling, chirping nonstop. Part of me was like, damn, that's so sick. Damn, that's so... Imagine hitting big buckets. Imagine dropping 30-plus. Imagine being just a dog in this league, one of the best scorers in the game right now, and being able to yap right in the face of some of the best players in the league like Joel Embiid. It's got to be such an unbelievable feeling. And to do it with a bunch of slop behind you, too. They didn't have the three assassins, the Kyrie Irving, the James Harden. It was him and Blake Griffin, Claxton. Who else was out there? I'm not going to lie. Some of these nights, you look and go, who? Right? The last 2 nights. Who? I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Who the hell are some of these names thrown out there? Right? They had Day'Ron Sharpe. How about, let's look into Day'Ron Sharpe. Now, is this someone I should know more about? We'll find out. This is his first year. He's got 9 games played, 5.4 minutes. Okay. 60% field goal shooting. Nice. 3 points per game. How about that? 3 points per game in his 5 minutes of action. Good for Day'Ron Sharpe. Played at UNC. How about that? Born in 2001. That's scary as hell. That's scary as hell. I'm old. Oy. I'm old. Ew. I look down and I see Tobias Harris, 3 of 17, 0 of 5 from 3, 11 points and 5 personal fouls. That's the last thing I want to think about right now. What I do want to think about, though, is WinView. And if you have not downloaded their app yet, shame on you. WinView is amazing. Are you tired of getting fleeced by the house? Are you tired of spending time researching players and teams only to end up short in sports betting, looking up trends and things of that nature? Well, forget about the spreads, the salary caps, the over-unders. With WinView, all you need to do is answer questions about the game, and if you get them right, bada bing, bada boom, you're cashing out and money is going right into your pocket. NFL, NBA, NHL, pregame, in-game, weekend-long contest. There's so many variables for you to explore on WinView's app, and what you need to do is check out the link down below in the description, winview.tv/broads. Hit that link and sign up there. Answer 8 questions about each game before it begins, or play quarter-long contests while you're watching the game to take your viewing experience to the next level. It is such a fun time. I'm addicted. Nonstop every night. I'm looking at the NHL scoreboard. I'm looking at the NBA scoreboard, and I'm playing, and I'm consistently winning too. I'm not here to brag, but I'll tell you what, holidays are coming around, and it's a lot easier to go spend gifts and totally blow a ton of money on my fiance and spoil her because of how much I'm winning each night. And you should check it out as well. winview.tv/broads. It's so simple. Give it a run. Try out a couple games. They have a good promo right now, doubling your deposit bonus up to $100 if you're a new user. winview.tv/broads. Play a couple rounds. See what it's like. You're going to have a great time. It's very entertaining, I guarantee it. So with that, let's rock with some Anytime Hotline calls here, because I'm curious how people watched this game and how they thought after this game. So here we go.
Well, it's time to be officially concerned with the Sixers again. I mean, this team doesn't seem to show up until it's time for them to make a huge run, try to get back into games after digging themselves in the hole. And I don't want to be one of those guys, but you need to actually get somebody out there, somebody to actually help this team. Because I don't believe in punting years. And not trading Ben at this point is, we're essentially giving into just punting this year away and just playing for 2023. Which, when you have a player like Embiid in his prime, and you don't know how much longer he's going to be in his prime with his current physical condition, I don't believe in just punting a year like we're clearly deciding to do at this point.
Well, I don't believe in just getting rid of Ben Simmons and changing the trajectory of the franchise just to get rid of him because you don't want to piss away a season of Joel Embiid. That's why it's a very difficult decision. It's not easy, right? You can look at one way and say, well, it's hurting you because Joel Embiid isn't getting any younger and he does have a lot of damage on his body. How much longer can he keep up this pace? And on the other end, it's but at the same time, do you just want to trade him for random a Tobias, a Danny, a Matisse Thybulle, a collective group of players that we're already bitching and complaining about now? No. So you got to find that middle ground, and obviously obviously, Daryl Morey, regardless of what the reports say, you got to realize that there's a lot of noise that gets released by certain media markets for a reason. There's people trying to get out a certain agenda in the NBA world. Hey, make sure you report that Daryl Morey's asking for everything under the sun. And it might not necessarily be true where he's still asking for 9 billion pieces. Now, clearly he's asking high because he's a very thought out, methodical, high level president of basketball operations who's regarded as one of the best in the league for a reason. But there's also a concept here of people leaking info to try and get him to now take off some of the layers because they want to try and get one over the Sixers. It's a cat and mouse game at the end of the day. And, you know, I always look at it the other way where it's, well, you're wasting Joel. Well, this is such a massive, important trade where you can't act as if this is light. This is not a light move. This is an insaneful, organizational, impactful move that is going to be the difference on having actual success or getting stuck with a bunch of slop that we're complaining about right now on top of it. So, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's too early also in this to say they're punting this year away. While, yes, they're a little good of chunk of change into the season, there's a reason why, as NBA fans, we always say the season doesn't start until Christmas. So let's see what Daryl Morey does. It's possible he punts this year away. It's possible he plays this long game into the next offseason and whatnot, and we'll see how I feel as it continues to progress. But I can't say that yet because what if he does make a move? There's clearly been a target date on December 15th for a reason around the league. And now that the Indiana Pacers are willing to say, hey, we're going to make some moves here with Sabonis and some other players, it opens up the door for a three-way trade, opens up the door to operate with a bunch of different teams. So let's just see exactly what ends up happening before you make that style of statement. But in terms of, you know, what was the way you kind of worded it in the beginning? You're feeling nervous about where this team is right now and you're kind of, you know, now it's time to feel that way. Yeah, as they're currently constructed, there's clearly problems, right? They don't have enough. Here's another thing to throw into the mix. They don't have a real point guard. As much as I love Maxey, what do we love about him? He just flies around and he's speed and he's a burst of energy and he drives, right? And like, that's awesome. But he's not a primary point guard. That's not a knock on him. I just wonder long term, can you get away with being a number one starting point guard and your best option be just run around nonstop and see what happens, right? Like, there has to be a structured offense. You have to make passes to your best big man, and you got to get the ball into the post, and you got to run an offense, and you got to slow it down at times. And there's so many things other than just, hey, be aggressive, be nonstop, fly to the rim, fly to the rim, fly to the rim. There's a reason why someone like Chris Paul has so many variables to his game. And I'm not saying Tyrese Maxey has to be one of the best point guards to ever live to satisfy me. I love Maxey, but I do think they don't have a traditional point guard that can fully do a lot of things. Maybe he can grow into that, and maybe he can learn, but that takes a bit of time to fully establish that style because there's so much into learning the point guard position at the NBA and learning how to run an offense fully. So there's so many variables here, and you know, it's okay to be a little nervous about what we're watching now and say this is sort of the product that we're going to get accustomed to until something changes, whether that's Doc Rivers figuring out how to play these two together more at an efficient pace, whether it's Daryl Morey making a move, whether it's guys playing better. If Tobias Harris just steps the hell up, then we feel a bit differently about where we are, I'm sure. So there's a lot of different things that can happen to switch the flow of this team. Now, what's their next game? Sunday night at New Orleans. After that, in Boston, Monday. Oh, a back-to-back? Sheesh. Is that right? Is that another back-to-back? Let me just verify that. Sometimes I feel nervous when I write it down on my desk calendar, and I go, did I screw that up? No, Sunday, Monday, back-to-back. All right. We'll see what happens. Both on the road. And then I think they play Atlanta after that on the road. No? Wait. Am I skipping days? Oh, no, that's a home game. That's a home game. That one's in Philadelphia. Now I'm typing in the Sixers schedule again just to make sure I'm not lying. Yeah, that one's in Philly. Okay, let's get to the next call here.
Well, bros, the Sixers are now back at 500, 15-15, and tonight it looked like Embiid and Curry were the only ones who showed up and tried to play basketball tonight. Tobias Harris might have had his worst game of his career. I think he had like 3 of 18, and he had a terrible foul on Durant late. He was absolutely terrible. Maxey, unfortunately, he was out. And it was another game where the Sixers got done early. I think they were down like 18 points at the half. And it was like a similar story last night to the Heat. And they made a comeback, but it wasn't good enough. It's very tough, and I think the Sixers need to make a trade soon here and try to trade Ben Simmons. And this is exactly what Rich Paul wants.
Well, yes, sure. I mean, obviously, I'm sure that they're sitting there saying, hey, this is good that they're not doing very well, because that might make the Sixers pull the trigger a little bit quicker. But I also think when you're handling with Daryl Morey, he's pretty stubborn on this, and he's going to play this the way that he feels the most comfortable playing it. And I don't think he's just going to run into Rich Paul's little mindset either, right? And I think that's for the better, to be honest with you. You want to dictate the pace here as the president of basketball operations, who has the cards in your hand, considering the contract that Ben Simmons signed, and he has multi-years left on his deal. But yeah, I don't want to just rush into anything just because they're 500 right now. Well, hey, let's do a panic move and a knee-jerk reaction, because I don't think that that's what's best for the long term. It might be best for the short term, but it's not best for the long term, so we'll see. Yeah, a couple of numbers off, but 3 of 17 from the floor for Tobias, and they got down early, and they keep putting themselves in such a big hole. It's so hard to consistently climb yourself back out of that, and they did it again. They fall behind. Their defense is poor. Their offense was clicking early on with Joel finding his teammates and Joel scoring, but when that went slow, and it's not as if, let's be realistic, it's not as if the Brooklyn Nets are filled with studs defensively. That's not their forte. That's not what they're known for. So there was an ability to keep your foot on the gas and be better in that area, but it just wasn't the case at all. That was probably, Tobias has had some bad games for sure, but I think right now it's very confidence-based. You could see when he has the ball, certain decisions, and sometimes I think he passes up three-point looks. He does a pump fake. He steps in, and the thing is, the three-pointer was open, but fine. So is the inside the arc stepping up for a mid-range jumper is wide open too, but he bricks it, or he misses a layup, he misses a bunny, which has always been a part of the Tobias Harris experience. But it's just crazy, because last year he was really good. Tobias Harris was really good. If you were getting that version of Tobias Harris right now, you'd be seeing a different product as an entire team. That's really crushing you. But once again, it's not just that. It's the lack of a point guard. It's Joel at times looking off, but Joel Embiid is still the farthest thing from the issue with me. Matisse Thybulle not having an offensive game. Just the depth on Furkan Korkmaz blowing, and then it's like, oh, well, why don't you just throw Isaiah Joe? That's the missing piece. It's not really, right? You're just reaching for answers here, where if you're demanding Isaiah Joe, that he's not the answer. When he does get his number called, he misses some shots, and he's not there yet. Doesn't mean he stinks, but right now, he's not there yet. So you don't have a three-point specialist in Furkan or Isaiah Joe that you can heavily rely on. Danny Green hasn't been reliable. There's so many factors on why this team is now. But there is something to be said about someone getting paid that much annually to be better, a lot better, a style that we saw last year. And if that changed, I think it says a lot about, it helps out a lot of things. It helps out a lot with this team. Opens up the floor for other players, because now you got to keep an eye on Tobias. Nobody's keeping an eye on Tobias. You keep an eye on Tobias, you swing it to Danny. Then maybe Danny cashes in. Or maybe Seth Curry gets an open look. It dictates the way teams play you and the way that they got to put pressure on certain players. If you know Tobias is in rhythm in a smooth, nice season, in a nice stretch, that's something that you study and you analyze and you realize that there's an emphasis there. But if not, then you don't care about anybody but Joel. And if it's just hey, go stop Joel, and then you can just rely on anybody else taking shots because no one else is capable of really being able to perform at a high enough level other than Seth Curry some nights, then you're boned. You're absolutely boned. Tyrese at times too. You're boned, though. So that's kind of where we're going to end things here. We'll see what ends up happening on their next night on Sunday. You got a lot of emotions that day, though, with the Eagles playing as well. So we'll see what ends up happening for the 76ers. I want to thank everybody so much for hanging out and listening to this episode of Sports Talk with Broads, and I will see you next time.